It's about 4 on the nose right now. So, of course, we may still have others join in here, but we also have a fairly full agenda for our evening. It's our last night together in our series. And hello, Jaden, welcome. And I'll just give you a feel for what we can expect from our time. We're going to start with an opening practice. We have a little bit of new content, specifically working with strong emotions. And then we will have an additional practice that is relative to that topic. Low. And then a little bit of review. We'll also be talking about a trauma-sensitive topic of social context, and we'll also be looking at new skills in the classroom discussion topic, which is specifically safe containers. If we have time toward the end, I will allow space for a survey on the series. We are looking for the good, the bad, the ugly, so to speak. So whatever your heart feels about this series, sharing constructive feedback is what we're looking for. That goes directly to our grant provider. So Beth Ash receives that survey information directly. So please feel free to be just as candid as you can in doing the closing survey. And then as always, we'll have opportunities for reflection, Q&A, and then we'll look to close right on time by 5:30. I'll stay on after for anyone that may wish to stay on for any discussion after our time as a group closes. Okay. So why don't we just start with an opening practice? This will be about maybe 4 minutes, give or take. And to begin, I'll invite you to get into a comfortable position. That might be seated, lying down, or standing up, whatever feels right for you. We're fortunate to be in a virtual gathering to where you can choose any one of those things. I'm actually practicing standing up today. I had so much seated time today, and my body is just craving a little bit of movement and definitely the ability to stand. So whatever feels right for you. If it is seated or standing, just taking an upright posture, allowing the body to relax, just getting a sense of alertness, signaling to our system that we are here for practice. And if it feels right to you, allowing the eyes to close. So just maybe even taking a moment to consider eyes closed, feeling right, or maybe downcasting the gaze. And to begin, just letting attention gently fall to the breath. Just becoming aware of the breath as it is right now. And as we do, just following 2 full cycles of the breath in our own mind. Inviting attention now to gently shift to the muscles in the face. Allowing the muscles around the eyes and between the eyes to let go and relax. Allowing the cheeks to let go and release. And the low jaw to drop. So we invite relaxation, muscles in the face. Gently moving awareness to the shoulders, allowing the shoulders to relax. Becoming aware of muscles in the belly, allowing a complete release and letting go here as well. And Opening awareness and scanning in our own minds for anything else that the body may need to find a bit more comfort, gentle relaxation. Just tending to the physical needs of the body. That might mean maybe some stretch or slight movement or adjustment. Just being fully present, what it feels like to be in the body. And inviting attention to become aware of any mental activity. And as we do, we're not getting too invested. By this time, we've had quite a bit of day under our belt. So just noticing the thoughts that occupy the mind. And as we do, can we get a bit of an observer quality, a slight bit of distance? And if it feels right, just allowing those thoughts to pass for the next 90 minutes or so. That feels possible. And then gently returning back to the breath. And as we look to bring our practice to a close, together we'll follow one deep soothing breath in our own minds. And as we feel ready, beginning to blink eyes and bring awareness back into our space. And gently scanning for any slight adjustment that may be needed in the body with eyes open. So we continue to practice the quality of awareness with eyes open as well. Thank you for your practice. So, in whatever way you prefer to share back, I am interested in how practice is going for those of us who are practicing. I'm just kind of reflecting on how practice has been these past 2 weeks since we've joined last, what things are going well, and maybe what adjustments could you make in the upcoming week. We've got holidays coming up, so that always adds a little extra for all of us. About a moment, then yeah, thank you, Brittany. Yeah, good. Practicing in the moment, that point of empowerment, right? When we're aware of the present moment, that's our new point of empowerment. That's our choice point. Really good. Thank you. Jaden. Okay, I love this. It has become routine. And so by now we're more than 30 days in, and a little bit of effort once a day, every day allows it to become part of the routine that hopefully, um, as we stay committed to it daily to this at this point, um, we can never unlearn or not know what we know now, right? At a minimum, we know that there is another way of meeting the world, meeting relationships, meeting ourselves. And this is an option. So even if we stay really committed for the next 3 years and then fall off, we still know and we will return to it. I feel pretty confident saying that. I'm so glad it's become routine. So working on increasing the length of time. Okay, very good, Kim. And there is a fine line in the beginning, this feedback that still working on increasing the length of time. There is this fine line on making sure it's not feeling like obligatory or one more task, and also still disciplining ourselves to sit once a day, every day. As we practice and nourish the nervous system, it becomes over time soothing in that we kind of look for it. Like the nervous system will eventually begin to look for it, and those longer periods will organically grow. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. I think if you're almost daily right now, Kim, really awesome, that time frame will begin to grow organically. Yeah, really good. Any other feedback on how practice is going? One of the most important things for me is that you know what you're doing when you get there, meaning, okay, I've carved out protected time. I'm going to sit down and practice. When I sit down to practice, I know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Does everybody feel like, and this can be a thumbs up or a come online and share out, but, or turn your video on, whatever feels right. Are you all feeling like you at least know what you're doing when you sit down to practice? Yeah, thank you, Andy. Wonderful, Megan. Okay, Brittany, very good. Anybody have questions about that? Anybody kind of feeling like, okay, I'm willing, I've been getting up and sitting down and going to practice, but I really not either feeling the efficacy or I don't know, not as far along in knowing what to do as what I'd like to be. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Know that that's a standing question or open, space to share back on that. Obviously, we're looking for an anchor to work with. And each time we sit down in our protected time, declare an anchor to work with in our practice. We're looking to hold attention to that anchor that sends blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, strengthens the PFC, increases brain health. It begins to lay new neural pathways in the brain when we're practicing daily. We are getting a regulatory effect because emotion regulation is part of that process in that part of the brain. And then we're also able to find that regulated state more quickly while we're out in the world when we want to most. Anybody finding that as you get out into the world and you have these moments where you know something's triggering you into low to mid or mid to high grade stress, that you're able to pull out a micro practice and begin to get a sense of regulation in the system where maybe once before you had not? Anybody having that experience yet? Brittany? Okay, great, great. And Heather, thank you, Heather. Good. Okay. So tonight we're going to be talking about working with strong emotion. And I think we've kind of acknowledged in our previous weeks together that being human can be intense. And the practice doesn't promise that the world becomes perfect. It just means that we're able to meet the world in a bit of a different way. We talked about the window of tolerance in week 2. And as we become aware of our physiological sensations through interoception, which we talked about in week 3, we're looking to be aware when we start leaving the window. And it doesn't mean stress is bad or never feel stress. But if we can mitigate those really high highs and really low lows and begin to induce a sense of regulation in our system, we can keep that balance a little bit easier throughout the day. When we start doing practice, we might notice that we are experiencing new things come up when we are practicing in our own protected time, particularly when we're practicing in silence and in stillness. But as we get more skilled with number 1, attentional awareness, and 2, self-regulation, we are able to notice when our system is leaving the window, and then we are able to bring out something that does induce a regulatory effect in our own system. And what feels soothing for me and what feels soothing for Brittany or Andy or anybody else could be completely different things. My hope is that by now you are somewhat familiar with the practices that support you best. And so whatever those practices may be, working a little bit more with them each day. And we have a little bit of a longer practice in our own protected time, whether that's morning or at another time of day. And then we can use them in micro practices throughout the day. But right now, I just want to get a feel. Does everybody have something that you know you can work with that induces a sense of regulation in your nervous system on purpose? I don't know if you want to, like I said, either do thumbs up, write in chat, turn your video on, whatever that might be. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Andy. Brittany, yes. Megan, okay, good. Just this ability to induce nervous system regulation, emotion regulation. Thank you, Megan. Self-regulation, using those things synonymously again. So we have then a different skill now for working with strong emotions. And quite often there are things that we might know, either we've not contended with something yet that we know, at some point we need to, or maybe thinking about something from the past or even going on presently in your life, or even worrying about the future, we know might induce strong emotions. What we're looking to do when we use our practice to work with strong emotions is, instead of either suppressing it or avoiding it, we're looking to allow the thought of it to come to mind, to even allow some of the physiological response to it or of it to come up and into the system. And as we do, in using those skills that we've been developing here to induce a sense of regulation in the nervous system. Again, every time we're doing this on purpose, we're actually signaling to the nervous system safety. We're giving our nervous system a felt sense of safety. And this is where we're discovering a little bit more our ability to cultivate our own sense of our rightness, so that we can be our right in these different situations that we face in relationship, that we face in our work, that we face in fill in the blank in life. And really, if not in relationship, where? Yeah, so much of what we're talking about right now is in how we're meeting our relationships, how we relate to others, and how we relate to ourselves, and then how we relate to the things that we're doing day to day. And as we allow what might feel like more strong or intense emotions to come up and through the system, for us to be with that now and induce a felt sense of safety through our practice into the system, allows those intense or those strong emotions to metabolize in a completely different way. So, really, it's over time, it's not super healthy to allow the intensity of that to live in the body. And there was an energetic component to strong emotion, to intense emotions. And so as we're allowing it up and through our awareness, up and through our system, The fact that we're also actively, number one, aware of it on purpose and actively regulating the nervous system, we're allowing that to metabolize in a completely different way. And so there are things that have come up through I've been in my personal meditation practice since '08. I use this practice as needed. So sometimes I might be going through something that I'm using it, one or two or three times a week to allow myself a little bit more clarity, a little bit more being with the thought of something and still allowing my body to feel safe, my body to feel at ease, or at least safe. And as we do, we get a new sense of awareness too, because we are allowing it to have a little bit more space, not just through our system, but through our mind and our thoughts as well. And because we're not activated in a defense response, we're not justifying, we're not defending, we're really just allowing and using that observer quality, meaning we're noticing how we're relating, not getting carried away by that. We're noticing the emotions that are in play. We're noticing the physiological response. It gives us more information too. And that way, if it reveals that there is something that, is to be said or is to be done, we're doing that with a clear state. Remembering that that prefrontal cortex is also our executive function in our decision making. So we're really looking to engage, once again, our very best stuff on purpose as we allow strong emotion to make its way through the system. Does this make sense? Yes, I've got a couple few. Okay. Okay, good. Stick with me. As you know, we have this short talk on working with strong emotions. Does everybody have at least like one topic that has maybe occurred to them or crossed their mind that you could work with in a practice? We'll do a practice where we're actively working with something. Yes. Okay. Very good. And when I ask that question, it doesn't need to be like that. The biggest thing that might come to mind, right? My goal here this evening with this piece of our time together is really to introduce you to the idea that we are able to be with the intensity of life in a completely different way when we build this skill. We are able to allow certain things to come through our awareness, notice the physiological sensations, remembering two or more physical feelings equal an emotion. Science tells us it's two or more physical feelings that equal an emotion. We can begin to name and identify what emotion is in play a little bit more skillfully. Then we can allow that emotion to have a little more room to move through the system. Not only are we doing it as we self-regulate, signaling safety to the nervous system, like I can be with this and still feel safe. We're also keeping our loving awareness as part of our practice. So it's moving past that loving awareness. And the more often these old things, sometimes they're old, sometimes they may not be, but the more often these intense or strong emotions move past our loving awareness, often that loving awareness is part of the healing as well. So I ask for, any thoughts, question, reflection, or feedback. Last week I said, or the last time we joined, I said at one point, tough crowd. And when I drove home, I thought I might want to qualify that. All I mean is it's important to me that what I'm sharing is landing. And when I know that it's landing, I can move on. And if it's not, I can kind of crack it open a bit further. So I'm just looking to understand or get some insight if what I'm sharing right now is landing. And if you have at least one thing that invokes a strong emotion in you, and if you would like to be able to be with that strong emotion in a different way, because that's what we'll work with in practice today. I know Brittany gave me a yes. I saw a few thumbs up. Does everybody have something that might come to mind when I talk about this topic? Okay, absolutely. Yes. Okay, thank you. I know I've had someone say once, Rachel, which one should I start with? Whatever comes to mind first, actually. If you're thinking definitely, okay, thank you, Andy. Sometimes people go, no, seriously, Rachel, which one should I start with? That first thing that came to mind, that's often the right thing to work with. And again, in a space like this, maybe not the biggest thing or the most intense thing. Okay, this can be something that maybe gets you every time it comes up and you're ready to be with that in a different way. But maybe it's not your biggest thing. And we'll have another couple minutes to consider a topic because I want to revisit just a couple things about feeling safe and contained. So obviously a felt sense of safety is important in everything that we're doing. We're able to induce that felt sense of safety a little bit more in our system on purpose when we practice. But then there are also some other things that we can be doing in our containers. So in terms of the space and the environment that you're in right now, you probably know if there's any other humans in your home. You might be able to be in a position where you have your door shut. I know mine is shut. I know nobody else is in my building here and both doors are locked. So I know that my container, so to speak, is feeling very secure. Anytime we're doing a practice like this, I do feel like whatever we can do to make sure we're feeling safe and contained, is going to help support us in practice. You all know you can keep your videos off, so practicing with your video off is going to help support you in that too. And if you remember previously, we had the practice of looking around the corners of the room. So when we look around the corners of the top of the room, and I'll invite you to do this right now in your own environment, your own setting, even allowing the body and the neck and the head to turn just a little bit. And then scanning the corners of the bottom of the room. Again, allowing the body to have some movement to turn. As we do this, this signals safety to the nervous system. The mammalian nervous system is really looking for cues of threat or looking for cues of safety. So to the extent that your environment is in fact safe and contained, your nervous system is detecting this when we open our eyes and look around in this way. Then I also want to practice maybe one or two somatic holds. And so let's just start together by putting some heat between the hands. And as we put some heat between the hands, somatic holds can feel supportive in different places, and it's going to be probably, different places feel supportive for different people. So for me, I like to put my hands quite often on my forehead and neck, but we can also choose our chest, our belly, two hands on the chest. So just inviting you after you have a bit of heat between your hands to put your hands somewhere that might feel supportive, allowing a little pressure, allowing it to be just a firm, gentle holding. Maybe the chest feels right. I know when my babies were little and they felt upset, there was just something natural about putting a firm hand to chest on my own kids. Letting them know they're secure, they're safe. And maybe letting the hands fall back down to a resting point. And if you want, giving them a gentle shake for relaxation. So I share these things so that as we practice, if there's any point where you feel either uneasy or that something or discomfort, remembering you have all the autonomy in the world, starting with if you don't want to do this practice, no problem. You don't have to engage the practice right now in this group. If you do wish to engage the practice in something, there's any discomfort at any point, you may wish to let your eyes open and gently look around the room. You may wish to use a somatic hold. You may feel like coming out of practice and not returning is appropriate, or gently opening the eyes, looking around the room, and to the extent that it feels okay, letting the eyes close, returning back to practice. So really what I want to emphasize here is autonomy. Only you know what feels right for you and to what extent you would wish to stay in a practice like this. I'm going to be kind of just doing a very simple, short kind of, I don't want to say surface level practice, but we're not going too deep, I guess is what I'd like to say. We're not going too deep. You do have a guided practice in your virtual community that you may work with in your own protected time if you wish to return to this. And I would also say you will know. You will know if and when there is an appropriate time to return to this practice and work with it again for whatever your own reasons may be. So our practice will be approximately maybe 5 to 7 minutes. And just leaving a little bit of space right now before we begin for any questions that you may have before we start. Okay. Okay, and again, if this is a no thank you, it's not required. But to the extent that you wish to join this practice, again, we'll be working with strong emotion, and I'll invite you to get into a comfortable position. Quite often, for the first time you do a practice like this, I do recommend practicing either sitting upright or maybe standing. It doesn't mean you cannot lie down, but lying down can feel a little more vulnerable sometimes. So whatever feels right for you. And if it feels right, allowing the eyes to close, and if not, just gently dropping the gaze, softening the gaze. And to begin, inviting attention to connect to the breath, maybe even noting the qualities of the breath. And allowing one topic, situation, or character or characters to come to mind that you know may invoke a strong emotion. Again, this does not have to be the biggest item in life. Or just one situation, person, persons. As we allow this situation to come to mind, maybe even recalling a couple of the details. Maybe it was something that was said, something implied, or something that was done. We allow the details in the situation to move through the mind, just beginning to notice if there's any physiological sensation that follows. Maybe heat in the neck, or an increased heartbeat or heart rate. Perhaps the hands get sweaty or something else altogether. Noticing how the body responds. And you allow the topic to get just a bit of momentum in the mind. As we notice this, not looking to get too far out of the window. So beginning to introduce an anchor or a practice that we know works for our system. Inviting you to select your own. Perhaps it's moving attention from the topic to a sound in the room. Perhaps it's taking one or two down-regulating breaths. Maybe the situation leaves a feeling of helplessness, or why bother? So maybe squeezing the fists for some energy, activating the system a bit more. To identify in our own minds what it is that our own system needs. And tending to it in a new way. If we're able to achieve some regulation in the body, and it feels right, maybe returning attention back to the situation, to the person or the characters involved. Allowing the body to feel. Feel what it prompts, to feel what comes up. Be even witnessing a bit differently. Noticing if you can have this topic in mind and hold to the practice, regulating the nervous system. We can be present to the strong emotion or the intensity of it as we regulate the nervous system. Um, Inviting the topic, the characters, or the thoughts about the characters to begin to pass. Just gently allowing them to pass to the extent that we can. They'll be there. We can return anytime. Returning back to the practice. Regulating the system. Whatever way we know supports us best. And I'll invite attention to return to the breath. As we begin to bring the practice to a close, together, following one natural cycle of the breath, finding the beginning of the in-breath, the end of the in-breath, and beginning of the out-breath to the end of the out-breath. And as we feel ready, beginning to blink eyes and bring awareness back into our space. And holding attention to the anchor that you worked with in practice with eyes open. Continuing to regulate the nervous system with eyes open as well. You for your practice. Practice was a little bit longer. It was about 7 minutes, I think. 7 or 8 minutes at least. Any sound or breath? Yes, Kim. Anchors can be sound. In fact, maybe to the extent that anyone's willing, putting in chat the anchor that you know is supportive for you or that you worked with in practice. So a sound in the environment can be a great anchor. Connecting to physical sensation of breath. So that could be the cool air at the tip of the nose or the felt sensation against the back of the throat. Maybe the rise and fall of the belly. Or it can be finding the beginning of the in-breath, the end of the in-breath. Yes, Heather, feet on the floor is a great anchor. These physical sensations that we can connect our attention to. Sometimes I even use whatever my hands are connected to. Maybe they're connected to each other or resting on my lap or resting on a table. Often my hands can be a great place just to move attention to, notice what my hands are connected to. So yes, thank you, Heather. Anybody else have anchors that you work with that is supportive for your practice? You also even be scanning awareness across the body parts where you know you hold tension, inviting relaxation. We did that a little bit in our opening practice. And again, I rest my hands on my stomach to feel the rise and fall of my breath. Beautiful. This natural resource that we walk with always. I love this. So yes, being able to just rest where you know you can feel your breath. Really, we're just looking to hold attention to something that we can connect to in the present moment. I love these. Thank you. Anyone else want to share an anchor that feels skillful for them? Yep, tap the tops of my legs. Yeah. Keeping ourselves physically connected. Yeah. Yeah. Blood flowing, movement, a little bit of activation too sometimes, Pat. Yeah. Thank you for that. Any reflection on the practice? becomes really important is that we know we can induce a sense of regulation in the system, and we begin to gain new bandwidth for being with different experiences, different emotions in a different way. And also really to be able to honor our own suffering in a different way, like honoring our own experiences. Like I said, it can be intense being human, and to be able to witness others in a new way, but also to be able to witness our own experience in a new way. And if I can allow certain things to come up and through my awareness, as you know, when I practice, I'm usually about 50%, give or take, in the practice with you. So I gently worked with the topic here tonight too, as we do, because we have, because we're working with the prefrontal cortex, making sure that our decision making and executive function and emotion regulation are online. We can think a little more clearly as we let this topic come up versus you guys know that my go-to is usually hyper aroused. Like I would go into the red zone, and when I, would kind of go offline or leave my window, I would go into those attributes of fight flight. But that's, chaotic. And by the way, you can't reason with someone offline. So you can't even yourself think clearly when you let these topics or these things come up and through your awareness. When we get carried away by our judgment, or our when we justify things, or we kind of focus on our rightness and their wrongness, or whatever you might tend to do. I'm really kind of drawing on my own experiences here, but whatever it is that you begin to recognize that you do, we're not even able to reason when we're offline. So these things that generally, if we think about it, or if we allow ourselves to think or talk about it too much, it puts us into some stress response, either fight, flight, and or freeze. This is true for us. And I also want to point out that this is true for others. If you are actively in a disagreement or in something where your rough edges are bumping against somebody else's rough edges and they go offline, this is not a time to try and reason with them. Even children, when children are not online, when they are not in their window, they cannot rationally be reasoned with. So we almost have to allow that stress response to make its way through the system, metabolize, offer up an embodied regulated system to the extent that we can to them. And then when we can begin to connect with them in a different way, when they get back into their window of tolerance, this is when we're able to have a safe and meaningful connection. And this is then when they have actually, or we all have the faculties online to be able to actually reason, discern, have clarity, all these things that are important in safe connections. I hope this is making sense. So just maybe any feedback, any thumbs up or thumbs down or questions or reflection. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Andy. Any questions about that practice? Thank you, Jaden. Any questions about that practice? So here's the deal. Thanksgiving is in a few days. I don't know about you, but I know full well I'm going to be joining with family. And I'm already kind of picturing, isn't it something what the mind will do? Like I'm already anticipating the people I'm going to see. I already know how some of them make me feel. Right? As loving as I feel like I am, I'm thinking about some of the things that historically inform me that these people make me feel a certain way. I know certain topics come up, right? All the things. And when we can begin to notice how we're relating, notice if and when we're leaving our own window, this is our new point of empowerment, our new choice point. I can continue to go into that thought process. By the way, amen, amen, Jaden. Isn't it the worst? It doesn't even matter what side you're on. Politics is the worst. And since it's up for discussion, like we want to be as skillful as we can in these conversations when they do come up, right? Because they tend to infuriate us. I'm not here to say what side you should be on. I just know that by the time we feel strong about something, we want to be as skillful as we can in that discussion. So if we've got that one person that says that one thing and it takes us off to the races and we're offline, we're not even speaking from our very best stuff, our executive function, our decision making, our emotion regulation. right? So we want all of these things intact. We want to be able to be with these topics in a different way. We want to be more skillful on these things that matter most. And it is the worst. And it's also, I know for me, what has happened in the past in Thanksgiving, the setting that I will be in, is that people like to talk in a way that they want to assume what my politics are. I believe they know that they're not, but they want to try and include me in their mix. So just even noting what comes up when we think about joining, for Thanksgiving. And for some, that might be nothing but joy, love, peace, can't wait, yay. And hats off. I love that for you if that's you. I also know that for many of us, it can invoke strong emotion. So remembering this practice, and maybe even using this practice once or twice before Thanksgiving comes to imagine what that talk is like and to regulate your nervous system, let it come up and through your awareness. And then through that, we're online in a different way. We can begin to discern more clearly, maybe our position on something, or maybe a skillful way to represent how we feel about that differently, and so on. Does this make sense? I'm so with you, Jaden. And sending love for a peaceful Thanksgiving. If in fact you even celebrate, recognize this holiday, right? That's even unfair to assume that everybody recognizes or celebrates Thanksgiving in the way that historically has been. Any thoughts, question, reflection? I read this out loud. Heather has a sweet share. She says, I've been using thank you as a way to snap my ego out of the hamster wheel of doom. And I say thank you for over and over, listing as many things as I can for minutes at a time sometimes, or while I'm in an uncomfortable conversation. I'm in love with this. So here's what this makes me think. You're using gratitude. And gratitude is a force multiplier. So if we can get our minds geared toward gratitude, it just brings more of that for which we're grateful. And we can have a grievance or we can have our peace, but we cannot have both. So if we have something taking us there and we say, nope, I'm using gratitude instead, we're choosing peace in that situation. Yeah. I love this practice right now. I know that if I can't focus on someone or something and feel good, then I need to redirect my focus. Doesn't mean I'm giving up on getting there. It doesn't mean I'm never going to try again. It just means if where I stand today in this situation, I cannot focus upon you and feel a sense of well-being in my body and a sense of joy. Joy is my benchmark. If I dip below joy, something's off. If I can't feel a sense of joy, then I'm not going to have my focus upon that person or that situation. I love your practice, Heather. And if you're willing, Heather, maybe put in chat on a scale of 1 to 5, the efficacy, 1 being not at all, 5 being really effective. If it's the same Heather sharing, and I think that it is, that put the heart up there, I'm going to take that as like a 4 or 5. Yeah. It's been a couple of years that you've been doing this. Yeah. And so now your mind and your system is geared toward you've trained your mind to have um, the quality of gratitude at the forefront. Yeah. Might be putting words in your mouth right now. I don't want to go too far into that. Yeah. Yeah. It is a form of meditation for sure. It's grown. I'm joyful almost all the time. That's really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any other thought, question, or reflection on the topics that we've spent time in so far, working with strong emotion? Yeah, no, no worries at all. I don't think you are. I think it's important to share. Okay, so I want to just say again that there is a practice in your virtual account. I'm going to pull that up here in a minute after we take a short break. I just want to check. It's about 5 of. Do you guys want to take a short 5-minute break? Get up, stretch, move. You can put thumbs up if you would like to, or thumbs down if you want to maybe try and keep moving and wrap up a few minutes early. Yes, please. Okay, let's go take our break. Okay, let's take 5 minutes. So it's 4:55 right now. I'll be back here at 5 on the nose and we'll continue. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll share.
Okay, I have to thank you.
Um, so sorry, I couldn't really, there was stuff going on around me before, so I couldn't really come on camera. So my husband went through a bunch of amputation and surgeries, and like that's the stuff that makes you like figure it out, like how you're gonna get through it. And it was as simple as so he was off his feet, like I was counting feet. We don't have kids, so there were 3 feet. And I was the one with 2 feet, and I realized how important my feet were. So I just started saying thank you to my feet all the time, and that's where it started.
Yeah,
That I just noticed that I felt peaceful when I was grateful for something.
yeah. Acknowledge these things that we don't necessarily think about and maybe even take for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I missed the last PD, and I haven't had time to go back and watch the recording, but so like I don't know if I'm repeating, maybe you went over all this in the last meeting and I'm like redundant. So if you taught about this, I don't know, like gratitude.
We
I don't.
didn't, we've just simply touched on gratitude as a force multiplier, as a choice to direct our attention to. Um, Normally, I will look to bring gratitude into a practice maybe at the end and before, returning awareness to our environment, naming one thing for which we're grateful. The more we can actively notice the simplicity of finding one thing for which we're grateful. Like I have a water can with me today and I can, drink water. My space is contained and I know my environment feels warm and comfortable. Like these items don't need to be big, but when we can train our attention to have the quality of gratitude as a go-to, it changes the way that we experience life for sure. And you're talking about it in a very explicit, disciplined, practiced way.
It was just it what I noticed how stressed out I felt, and it was so I practiced. I did. I was like, so when I say thank you, I feel better, and so it's
Yeah,
like how many things can I find to be grateful for?
that's right.
And
Thank
it
you.
really has worked.
Yeah,
I'm
it
sorry
really.
if I'm like oversharing
No,
or.
not one bit. Not one bit. I appreciate you. And it absolutely does work. And that's a choice, right? When we are aware of where our thoughts are and the nature of our thinking, that's our new choice point. We can direct our attention to, in this case, gratitude. Yeah,
Oh, and what I meant to say was, so I think it's meditating, but I heard, do you know who Sam Garrett is?
I do
He's a
not.
musician. Oh, so
Okay.
look him up. You'll love him. You'll love, really love him. He creates music about peace. That's all I'll say.
Beautiful.
I saw an interview with him and he said, thank you was a mantra. It was still when I didn't think I understood what meditation was, but he said, thank you was a mantra. And I was like, so I started there.
Yeah. Really beautiful. Yeah.
Thanks for letting me
Thank you for the share.
up the
Thank you
mic.
for the testimony to your practice.
Thank you. Thank you for these PDs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else want to share or reflect? As we grow this skill to be a little, as we're aware of the nature of our thinking, we're aware of how our body is responding, this observer quality. Until we're able to observe these things, we can't discern or determine if this is who we intend to be out in the world. It's kind of like for those of you who play sports and watch film. I'm in the process of I watch film almost every week for my sport. It ain't easy. I remember like there was a full year where I wasn't even willing to watch myself do my sport because it was so hard to look at. But literally watching film is a great analogy. Our ability to like watch what we're doing, where it's going well, where it looks rough, or where we can clean it up, or what we intend to do. And then we can begin to make these slight adjustments, observing the nature of our thinking, observing our physiological sensation. This is the same thing. Till we're willing to kind of shoulders back, take a look at these things, we can't really begin to make the meaningful or substantial change that we wish to. Maybe you don't need to change anything. Maybe everything's going really, really well. But I've been active on my path since 2008 with this work, and I'm still working to improve and change and grow in the ways that I can. So, really, it does take this ability to have some skill in the observer quality. In fact, let's look at one thing here real quick. I wasn't going to do it in this order, but since we're in the middle of this right now, um, Beth, I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with you. Okay, thank you. And tell me if you can see my screen or when you can see my screen. Thank you, Beth. Okay. So one of the things that, and I'm just going to move if I can, my little guy. Can I move it? Zoop. Yeah, hold on. Thank you. So I know that, okay, we've just done our practice. We know that we're working with the prefrontal cortex. It's been called a lot of different things, responsible for different things. The seat of our attention, it's where we are able to speculate possibility, demonstrate intention, control impulses, create a felt sense of safety in our system. This is where skillful observation occurs and so much more. In my own professional development that I'm working on right now, I heard it referred to as the CEO, so to speak. So I've never called it that before, but of course it made me grin, right? Because we recognize that to be a term of that's in charge. It's what's in charge, right? Highest level of order is really what that invokes a little bit. But here are some things that I want to make a direct tie to. Meditation is self-observation and it is self-development. It's where we observe our own thoughts, our speech, our own actions, observe how we relate to fill in the blank, whatever that might be. And it gives us a mature ability to self-reflect and self-check in a different way. Yeah. We know it's going to be okay. Whatever we're looking at within ourselves, we're able to regulate our nervous system as we look at it. So even those things that we're not so crazy about or we wish might be a little bit different, we're going to shoulders back look at that because we have a different skill to be with that. But as we do these things, this is technically called metacognition. And as we have to go through life with metacognition means that we have this observer skill now. We have this observer skill about ourselves. We can even begin to be an observation of others too. You know, my take on that, I invite us to stay in our own lane. It can be tricky sometimes because once we're, you know, very active on this path and we're doing this work, it can be very easy to kind of look at others and notice as well. But really, we're looking to observe our own thoughts, our words, our actions, and discern, is that who we intend to be? There's a wonderful book called shoot, I'm so sorry. The Person We Mean to Be by Dolly Chugg. And it points to practice as one of the most supportive things we can be working with to really kind of go through the world, notice our blind spots, notice our unconscious bias, be willing to kind of look in a different way at ourselves in the world, be goodish instead of having to be, oh, I'm a good person. And if I blew it over there, that doesn't mean I'm not good anymore. No, we're goodish in general. And if we can kind of work with that, and then this skill of metacognition becomes um, a power skill, yeah, in terms of our own personal development. And then becoming aware of our own unconscious thoughts, we can become aware of our reflexive behaviors and automatic emotional reactions. But now we're doing it under the observation of with our new skills. Yeah. So as we strengthen the prefrontal cortex, we then strengthen our ability to go from unconscious in our thoughts, words, and actions to very intentional and purposeful and powerful in all that we think, say, and do next. So I hope this makes sense and kind of ties back to what we're doing and why we're doing it when we're really working to strengthen a little bit each day, every day, the prefrontal cortex. And I'll leave a little bit of space for some of your own reflection right now. Maybe consider at least one important relationship and how practice might support it. I don't know if anybody might want to speak out or share. on either one of these reflections?
I know for me, sorry, I need to put my thing up here. Um,
Okay.
but one of the things that I know, and this is where I started to realize, oops, there it goes, how important it was just practicing the idea of that inner moment and like peace and like keeping my own personal peace in chaos, being not like any other classroom or any other job doesn't have chaos, but like being in a PE's level of chaos, like especially when there is no control and you're trying to bring control to it, it definitely gets frustrating from time to time. And I know, at least for me, like I would have like so much stress. Like Aura Ring would be like, "You had a stressful day." Like I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know." Um, and but like in that moment when I like took that deep breath of like, "No, I'm not gonna let this get to me. We're gonna calm down. I can feel myself working up." Like that's like at least one important relationship that I definitely like have been wanting to work on and being able to like be in that moment and not let it get to me like through the roof, through the roof. Like it felt so much better. I felt calmer. I felt more in control and just overall just felt like a better person because of it. And it had nothing to do with the kids, but it was more or less, I don't want to be in this position anymore to where I feel awful and I want to be in this better position. And so it's definitely been a much better time. And so like that's one important relationship I have that where I'm like, I don't want to feel without peace anymore in those certain
Yeah.
classes. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Brittany, thank you for your share. And so I'm always really careful. This series is designed first and foremost for your wellness. So we're looking to cultivate our own sense of well-being, our own sense of our rightness as on the regular. And so then to bring it into the classroom, these things that can go on in the classroom that invoke, even tonight's topic, invoke strong emotion, right? It doesn't even have to be some like up close personal relationship. It can be sometimes what feels like the chaos of right now in the classroom. And even bringing attention to what those physiological sensations are can put the PFC online, like dropping awareness into the body. Notice how the chaos in the classroom is making my body feel right now. That can actually send blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, inducing emotion regulation and that new sense of stability and the piece that Brittany's pointing to right now, right? So that we can have that as an organic felt sensation is what we're looking to accomplish. And the more we practice it little by little, the more natural and authentically we arrive at that. In the beginning, it can take a little bit of doing and it can be like, stop. I'm not turning over my piece right now. I'm going to do something. And then over time, it becomes the natural way of the body because you've got that trained into your system. It's installed in the system. Remember, every time we come out of practice and I ask you to hold your attention with eyes open, the purpose of that is to install the practice in the body. It's also what I'm looking for when I ask for reflection. I care very much about what you would reflect. I want you reflecting so that the practice is installed in the body so that you know what practices are supporting you, so that you know what you can turn to and call up to induce that regulatory effect. That's peace that Brittany's talking about when you want to on the spot. Really cool. Thank you for your share, Brittany. Maybe we can move to that second reflection. And I will say that, Beth, I can't see chat right now with my screen up. So if there's anything I should be seeing there, please let me know. But reflecting on one idea or concept from our series. So this is our fourth joining together. If you've been here for all of them or watched the videos, and just maybe identifying something that either has the most energy for you or gives the most energy for you. Excuse me.
Rachel, there was a share in the chat. Andy shared that thinking of my relationship with my students, practice, and the idea of being an observer can take me a step back and see the situation more objectively. I might get frustrated sometimes and blame myself. However, practice and mindfulness help me remember that it isn't really about me. It's helpful to practice and think about those things if I or any of my classes are going through a rough time.
Andy, thank you. Excuse me. I'm going to take one more drink of water here. So you feel the level of care in this share, right? Like one of my main takeaways every time I work with a teacher cohort or school professionals, excuse me, is I'm always reminded that you are all in it for the right reasons. The level of care that I hear in this statement, because I also heard, I'm going to pull up the chat. I want to read this myself. Here we are. I have it. I might get frustrated sometimes and blame myself. Yeah, taking that full ownership and that responsibility. And so I hope that the observer quality, Andy, is supporting you, and it's going to continue to grow, right? This quality and the skill, we continue to grow with this. So this is not, I know I've said it, my mom always says Rome wasn't built in a day. So we're not like, achieving all of this at the end of, one PD, but this is a skill that we're practicing like any other skill that matters to us. And as we can begin to observe what's happening in the body, observe how we're relating in our mind, be honest with ourselves about what that is, name it when it makes sense, if it makes sense, so that we can become skillful with that with others as well. I'm so glad that you're finding some of that observer quality to be helpful for you in the classroom. Yeah, because it can be intense in there. I know. Thank you. Okay, Kim, thank you for joining. That was okay. Yes. Okay, thank you too for that. Thank you so much. Lovely, lovely. Anybody else wish to share? It's difficult. Yeah, I hear that. Kara's again, right? Patricia, right above Andy's share, says it's difficult not to judge yourself. Yeah. Yeah, I have groups here in my center and we know that we can be hard on others and we know we can be hard on ourselves. And the group that's most active in my center right now, what I'm finding is the majority of them are harder on themselves than they are on others. Yeah. Patricia, so then the practice becomes noticing my judgment. Noticing my judgment. Isn't that interesting? There I am beating myself up again to the extent that it feels right. Even just for your protected time and practice, allowing that judgment to pass, coming back to something with an anchor that induces the regulatory effect so that you can have that felt sense of our rightness and you can know that all is well in this moment. Yeah. Any other reflection on either one of these? One idea or concept that you feel you can take forward with you actively with intention on purpose that would support you in your own wellness, in your relationships, in your work. Okay. So I do have a closing survey that I'm going to pull up here in about just 2 minutes. The two things that I wanted to talk about in terms of our trauma sensitive discussion topic, and I'll bring myself out of this for 1 minute here, is social context. And I know it kind of seems obvious that we can't possibly know what others are dealing with, what the history is, what it's like in the home, but just maybe more than anything. And I think that you're all, like I said, I come out of every time I work with a group of educators and school professionals, I'm always reminded that you're in it for the right reasons. You care very much about the classroom, about your students. Obviously you're here, I think, in part for that as well, not just for your own wellness, but for that as well. But the social context from which others come, we can't possibly know. Like we can't understand how anybody else is relating. And I think even keeping an awareness at the forefront can be very supportive when we're calling on others to be active in whatever is important in that moment or whatever we're calling on them for in that moment. And the way that they relate, so much of their own personal social context is influencing the way that they relate. And we kind of talked in week one that how I relate and how you relate can be two totally different things. I gave that short real life story of, hey, babe, what sounds good for dinner, right? Even that, how I related to the question from my husband, how my daughter related to that question from my husband, completely two different experiences. So just really remembering everybody is having their own unique experience, particularly in today's world. Today's world is definitely at times feeling really sideways. That's a pretty polite way to say it, I think, too. And then the other piece that I wanted to say is just remembering that safe containers have a lot of impact. And so I'm not saying or suggesting that you bring these practices into the classroom formally, but that the container of the classroom does influence or impact the felt sense of safety that kids have in the classroom. So just keeping in mind those two things, these are part of on our series outline too for us to look at. And I just wanted to briefly speak to those 2 points before we got into our survey. I also want to leave some space right now for any questions or reflection or any thoughts before we pull our survey up. Okay. Mm. And I give a couple of examples that could work for most to go to a safe area. Okay, so if I'm understanding the question, I think that okay, so when I go into a school, I never know where I'm going to be assigned unless it's like, go to room 208 and you'll be working with teachers there. But if I go in, sometimes I'm going in and, oh, you're in the gymnasium today, or you're in the cafeteria today, or we can be anywhere, all of which is perfectly fine. But I think what I'm pointing to when I talk about a safe and contained, safe containers is being able to acknowledge that different things can invoke a different feeling in us depending on our environments. Depending on, like earlier today, I pointed to the fact that I'm in my center right now, and within my center, I'm in my office. My door is closed. I also know that my front door and the back entrance are both locked. So I know that if I want to sit down and practice with eyes closed, I'm completely safe and contained. I can even close my blinds. When we're in, so this, if Patricia, if this question is for yourself, setting yourself up in practice, particularly if you're doing something like what we did tonight, working with strong emotions, setting yourself up. Oh, I'm sorry, an emotional space. Okay. Anybody? Okay, so she says, sorry, not a physical space, Rachel, an emotional space. When we regulate our nervous system, I love this question. When we regulate our nervous system, when we induce that regulatory effect in our system, number one, that is one of the first things we can do to signal safety to our system. And we want to be embodied in a regulated nervous system when we begin to work with strong emotions. So today I looked to have a grounding practice, not much time between that grounding practice and the time we did our next practice. When we started working with strong emotions, I invited us to connect and become aware of the breath. And then we can begin to work with those stronger emotions. We want to be embodied in a regulated nervous system. And when I say regulated system, that's emotion regulation in the system. And so we can feel safe. That felt sense of safety comes from being embodied. And the more we're practicing that once a day, every day, we're actually repairing and retuning the nervous system to where it can have that felt sense of safety on the regular. If we've been working in low to mid toxic stress, chronic stress, or trauma for long periods of time, our nervous system has some repair that it needs to go through in order for us to have window of tolerance or felt sense of safety as the norm. I hope that makes sense. So to feel safe emotionally, we're talking about an embodied state within our nervous system. And we are able to cultivate that within ourselves through our practice. And as our system is embodied, we are then offering that out to those with whom we join, so that students can begin to feel a felt sense of safety when they're with us. Other adults that we co-regulate with begin to feel the regulatory effect from our system, and so on. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And then hopefully, then if they're picking up on your safety, then they're going to be also coming down. Is there anything that we can like say, do? I know there's not a magic pill out there, but that will help get them from that 10 down to an 8.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the deal. The best thing that we can do is us ourselves be truly embodied. That means practicing once a day, every day, beginning to repair our own system so that we're not activated. Knowing if we become triggered, that activation, we know we feel that coming on, and we can downregulate if that means downregulate, upregulate if that means activate a little bit more in the system. People want to have a felt sense of safety when they connect with us. And when we are activated in our defensiveness or our anger or whatever attributes come with that activation, we are biologically designed to feel, sense, and detect that. So it might feel like, there are people that we feel like it's like, no, thank you. No, no, thank you on that. We talked about this maybe week 2 and 3, but where we had that, there are others when we join with them, they just feel good to be with. We know that they feel safe, they feel secure, they feel embodied. Does this make sense? As we're practicing every day, we can then offer them not what we think are the right words or say or do. It is this felt sense that they get from our biological cues that we're not efforting to do because we're embodied. The only effort we really need is to practice every day. And then when we go out into these situations that you're thinking of when you asked me that question, Patricia, we can actually induce a sense of regulation on purpose when we need it the most. And a lot of times when we face those situations that are hairy, we get kind of activated, right? Well, we want to be in somewhat control of that. We want to be able to notice, ooh, this one's getting me. I'm going to downregulate and I'm going to put my feet on the ground. I'm going to have some water. Does this make sense? Because we can say I'm safe all day long, but if we're activated in our system, people, particularly youth, but people, they feel that. Yeah, thank you. Yes, yes. Any other thoughts, questions, or reflection? Okay. So a couple things. I am going to pull up a survey and a QR code. I'll ask, to the extent that you're willing, that you please scan that and complete it. The sooner the better, because the further away we get from surveys. Thank you. Beth has it in our chat right now. I can pull up a QR code too if that's easy. Actually, the chat's probably the easiest. Yeah. Anybody needs the QR, put it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll just use Beth's link right here. So I think it'll maybe take 5 minutes, give or take. This is for our grant provider, remembering that it's C2S2 through BGSU that has sponsored our time together. Thank you, Beth, very much for making this possible to bring to people who are kind of leaning in and engaged in this work. I'm so very grateful. You're not doing it just here, but in other places. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for providing the training, and thanks everyone for your attendance. We appreciate you all.
Yeah, I certainly do too. Yes, thank you, Amber. And thank you, Jaden. Yes, thank you for your sincere engagement, everyone. Thank you for your contributions to our discussions. And I will continue to stay online until everybody's out of the room. So if there's anybody that wants to hang back for anything, but otherwise, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you. And keep practicing and keep taking good care. Thank you.